And welcome. We are back to the most canceled, redone, date change show in the history of Touring Fan Live. We are episode 4.76 in the way that this show has been canceled and redone. But we're here, Destined to Remember, episode 4. And we're here not to talk about the East Coast, because I totally screwed that up, but the West Coast dates. And tonight I am so excited, not only to be cheering on my Boston Celtics, who are just about to tip off, but to be sharing this room and platform with two of the greatest guys I know, Randy, who is on my left, and Dave, who is further on the left. Two guys who I would say have the history and the knowledge of Pearl Jam that most of us wish we did. So I'm going to cut the music. We're going to jump right into the topics which are below us and get right into what is known as Destined to Remember and music. That's my cue.
That's your cue. What about our cue? Are we up? Do we talk now?
It's my cue for you. We'll start with Dave first. Dave, how is things going in the old Northeast?
Going well. Busy as ever. Working on the site. Took a little bit of a lull now that the tour was over, but still working diligently on the draft fantasy league that Randy so eloquently had me help out with, and doing the Live Footsteps. Nice.
That's great. Everyone's healthy and safe.
Everybody's healthy and safe. Knock on wood.
That's what matters. Randy, how is things going on the East Coast?
It is. It's going all right. It's going pretty well. Like after going out to Sacramento was tough, and you kind of had to find a way to get through it. And if you haven't heard the story about how we did Pearl Jam karaoke, that was a big, it was just a warm feeling to have everybody there in Vegas that missed out have something Pearl Jam for the weekend. So it felt pretty good. And then I came back, and that Tuesday I tested positive for COVID. And then my not even 1-year-old baby tested positive for COVID. My wife did, my father-in-law did. So it was a bad few weeks, but we're in the spot where we're over it now and we're moving forward. And just like Dave, I'm preparing a lot for this European tour right now with liveonfourlegs.com, where we're going to have basically pieces up every day, whether it's like the location pieces that we did last month featuring 5 of the best moments from a certain location. Like tomorrow actually is out right now. The Pink Pop one will be out, and then Berlin before the Berlin show next week. So that kind of stuff. And then obviously the Concertpedia recaps coming right after the show every morning.
Well, that's good. Well, first of all, I'm glad to hear that everyone is safe and sound after getting COVID. And that is really a great transition. Not that it was great that you had COVID, but for our first topic of the evening, which is COVID, which really, I think previous to the tour, a lot of us felt, I think up until right to the tour started, I think a lot of us were like, all right, things are getting a little more normal per se. A lot of shows were going on. You didn't really hear about, COVID affecting shows. But I do believe that COVID definitely stuck a fork, as I would say, into this tour on the West Coast. Randy, why don't you give us some of your little rundown on the topic of COVID and the West Coast Pearl Jam shows?
Well, as you see, I'm playing around with my camera right now because I got this glare in the background that makes it look like, Jesus is sending me up to the heavens and calling upon me. But that's just the light from my kitchen. And on a very short notice, I couldn't get rid of it. So it looks awkward. I'm sorry, but we move forward and we talk. This is all about talking. This isn't about looking. So yeah, the West Coast tour was interesting because I feel like even with 7 shows and what was going to be 9 shows, you had a lot of story to tell. It felt like they were sitting on all these things that were built up for 2 years from, right from out of the gate with San Diego, with the band and Ed basically saying this is a love fest for the ocean, for the beach, and a lot of these songs are going to have the connection to San Diego. And then what do we get at the end of that show? We get the Reverse Mama song, which is a massive moment for them. And it felt like every show had a theme in a way where it's not like the whole show had a theme. Some, maybe the Oakland ones did, maybe the Fresno one did, but it felt like they all had something that you could lift out of that and be like, okay, that's a definitive moment for that show. And when that happens, it's very rare for a whole entire, I know it's short, but it's very rare for a whole entire tour to have that, because you have your kind of middle of the road shows where people are like, okay, they're, they did a night. And I think the one that you can kind of put in that category the most, it would be Phoenix. But even Phoenix, I think you have something to take out of it. So yeah, that's what makes these shows special. And right now, like it's on their mind. Like there's no lack of trying to make this special for all the people that have had tickets for so long. And they came back firing, and it was great.
Now, Dave, when we look at how COVID affected the shows, I would say the first couple of shows, and I want to bring up a comment that was brought up on Facebook. Brad says it's not as much the health issues related to having COVID as much as the restriction for people who tested positive. And I could see that, because I do believe, I don't know if there's anybody who went to the shows that doesn't know anybody that left the shows that you didn't know someone who got COVID, right? I feel like every show I went to, I at least knew somebody that was affected by getting COVID or knew somebody affected getting COVID at the shows. And it was crazy because maybe because I'm not as dug deep into some of the other bands and connections that I don't notice this. But Dave, did you feel as though COVID played a huge role in this tour, minus the Matt Cameron factor, which we'll talk about in a little bit?
I mean, I think they're on edge about it. I mean, Eddie already said he had COVID during his solo tour, and like I think they were trying to have the precautions, but it just didn't go far enough. I mean, they traveled together, private planes and stuff like that, but they have this inner circle that just somebody got close to them, and the precautions just weren't enough. I mean, I know last year I went to go see Dave Matthews, and I flew all the way out to Seattle and I went to the Gorge, and like an hour or two before the show, just like with Pearl Jam, we find out that the whole rhythm section, drummer and bassist, got COVID, and they didn't cancel, but they also had an opener that then filled in on bass, and then their keyboard player went on drums. So, I mean, with Pearl Jam, you have Josh, who was the opener, and he's already part of the band, so you really can't like just throw anybody in there. They had friends who came in and filled in. Josh filled in, Richard filled in. So it just, they did what they could.
I think that's a great transition too, to talk about, I think, what this tour is always going to be known for, right? And I think it's going to be known as the Drummers Tour. Because, you go from, it's on Touring Fan Live, the Facebook page.
Okay.
I'm not going to type it. So there is this unique way of looking at this tour as the Drummers Tour. Because I'm going to tell you this, and I said it last night when I did my show with Trey. I'm super excited that Richard got the opportunity to call up for this. I love Matt Cameron. I think Matt Cameron's an amazing drummer, but it was amazing to see the uniqueness that songs took with a different drummer involved in it. I think Josh has a different style than Matt, and I definitely think Richard Subaru has a different style than any of them. And of course, Dave Cruzen playing is a real special moment that probably you'll never see again, in my opinion.
Right.
So it was really cool, and I think that's what this tour is going to be known for. I didn't have the opportunity to see anybody else play with them. I got to see it with Matt Cameron, and I got to see it in LA, and we'll talk about that experience later. But do you think in 6 years' time, when we talk about the first leg of this tour, is this going to be known as how COVID affected it and we had to get a different drummer? And I'll start with Randy.
Oh, yeah. And again, I'm playing with shit. Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is, from everything, the things when Eddie emphasizes that absolutely everything's changed. Like, of course, there's no doubt about it. Everything from here forward is about reaction to COVID until we've got it undercover, because right now we obviously don't. I know other people that have COVID right now. It's still running rampant, and you never know when other strains are going to come in. But yeah, absolutely. It's going to be the one that you're going to remember. Okay, Stuverud filled in. You're going to remember Josh Arroyo, which, hey, look at the shirt I'm wearing today. You might recognize it because from Josh Arroyo had the first 5 names on his shirt when he was performing Yellow Ledbetter for them. And then after befriending him a couple weeks ago and really getting to talk to him, he's a really great guy. If you ever get a chance to talk to him, he's such a huge Pearl Jam fan. He'll talk your ear off. He's fantastic. But he said that shirt that he was wearing that day was made by a friend in Chicago. And unfortunately, I tried to reach out to him today to ask what the business is in Chicago to try to get this guy some sales, but he was able to send me the actual full landscape of the drummer. And yeah, it's missing Kai Neukermans. I understand that, unfortunately, but the addition of Stuverud, the addition of Klinghoffer, and obviously the addition of Josh there. Yeah, gotta love it. And you can even go further down the map if you wanted to. If you wanted to add Jimmy Shove, who was on the recording of Satan's Bed, by all means you could. So yeah, this is and not to just add to that, but Dave, the fantasy leagues that are all named after drummers, we could add a few to right. We actually had an additional league jump in, and I'm like, well, I'm all out of drummers. I use 6. I don't know what to do. And they're like, oh, we'll be Taylor Hawkins as a tribute to Taylor Hawkins. I said, that's perfect. Yeah, that's fine. And now we have at least 3 other people that we can rely on for this. And who knows what's going to happen over in Europe. And that's a conversation for a little bit later. But right now, I think what happened and working off the fly, unfortunately, and I think John, who's my co-host on Live on 4 Legs, said it perfectly. They were holding things up with duct tape and sticks, and then it just all fell apart. And you have to think, from as careful as they were being, as safe as they were being, it's really impossible for the guys to all be around each other and for something not to happen. So if Cameron got it, I don't know why it wasn't on any of our minds. Like, okay, when's the next guy going to get it? But unfortunately, it happened to Jeff, who seemed to be the one that was the most concerned about all this in the first place. So it's just a really unfortunate situation, but it made for amazing moments. It made for the Ledbetter moment with Arroyo. It made for the moment where Kai Neukermans of The Alive came out and played Mind Your Manners. It made for Dave Cruzen to come back in Fresno and play all of those 10 songs in Fresno. Like, that was huge. It'll probably never happen again, like you mentioned. And even things from Stuverud, that second Oakland show, which I think is the gem out of all these shows, getting in Dissident, getting in WMA, getting in Brain of J, like all these that they weren't mixing into the set list at the first couple of shows. That one is special. And that one, they just kind of said, look, throw the book out. Let's do something different. Let's really give the fans their thanks for rolling with the punches here. And yeah, of course, they're going to deliver on all counts. So yeah, I think ultimately this will be the story of the tour. It has to be, from the next 10 years going on, 20 years. I think this will be talked about for a very, very long time.
I think that's a great way to analyze it. Let me ask you this. Do you think they tour, because they're going to Europe, right? So they're not on the West Coast where they're safe, right? Let me explain what I mean safe. Safe enough that they can call someone like a Richard Stuverud at moment's notice, hey, come and let me jump on tour. Or Dave Cruzen. Do you think that they're touring in Europe with backup guitarists and backup drummers to fill in those spots, and they're in different hotels?
I think it would be really silly not to do that. I think that, okay, so what who do they fill in? And obviously it's going to be really hard. Like, who can fill in for Mike McCready? Who can fill in for Stone Gossard? Honestly, I don't think anybody can really fill in for Matt Cameron either. He's just been one of a kind in this situation, but they've had so many drummers in the past that they were kind of open to that situation, I think. And then once, what do you want? What are you going to do with Jeff? Like, you really want Josh Klinghoffer, who can play bass, to play all of those Jeff parts? It's just like, after a while, it's like, okay, this isn't quite the Pearl Jam experience anymore. What I want to know is where where they just say no, where they just say, okay, McCready's out. Like, we have this, crew hand that can play as well, like can at least hold his own like McCready. Like, who goes to the show to see a crew hand or someone like that? It really, for them, I feel like it has to be somebody special. It has to be like a fan that just bumped into them the day before and kind of practiced with them a little bit somehow. Or it has to be somebody, at Pink Pop is a good example, because Pink Pop is a festival. There's going to be so many people around, and they're touring with the Idols a lot during this. So it could be anybody from those bands that kind of steps in, but it's really hard to get that for more than a couple of songs. So if it happens again, unfortunately, I can see them taking the same precautions and calling it off after a while.
Okay. I agree with you. I will say this, though, an interesting list I came up with of the top most irreplaceable people in Pearl Jam to the lowest. Would you like to hear my list?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think we all agree number one's Eddie Vedder. Eddie Vedder's sick. You ain't going forward. I mean, they did it with Neil Young once. Never happen again.
Nope.
Number two is Jeff Ament. Can we all agree on that one?
It's between Jeff and Stone for me. It really is. I think the things that Stone has so many intangibles and Jeff has so many intangibles as well. It's like you can't really have one without the other, but there was a show in their history at the House of Blues. I want to say like 2002 or 2001, in that early 2000 era, where Stone had a prior commitment with like Brad or something else, and he couldn't make that show, and they had a replacement for him. And I've never listened to that show, but that's because I always say to myself, like, this isn't really the experience that you want out of Pearl Jam without Stone. He's the lead for all of those songs. He takes control of all of it, and you don't have your captain kind of guiding the way. What do you have? So I think while Jeff is immensely, immensely important, I think that Stone kind of drives the ship on most of the occasions here.
All right. So so my number two would be Jeff. Your number two is Stone. My number three is Jeff. I'm assuming your number three is Jeff.
Your number three is Stone.
Yes, correct. So we're all right. Dave, who are you agreeing with on this little topic?
I would go with number two would be Jeff. You got rhythm. You got the rhythm section, which first Matt out, then Jeff. I mean, you have no backing there to keep the rhythm in the band. I mean, you already have two out, so of course they cancel. But yeah, I would say Jeff would be.
I'm getting a notification right now. It's House of Blues 2004 is the show that you have in question, by the way.
Early 2000s there.
There you go.
Right there. I
then
know they did one in 2005, so I didn't want to say
Stone.
2005.
Then Stone, then Mike, then Mike, then Boom, then Josh.
That's so weird. That's so weird that Mike McCready is number 4 on this list. That's a very, very high list, though. Like the 1 through 4 is like ranking the characters in Seinfeld or something like that. They're all legends.
Let me ask you this. First of all, I think Seinfeld's a terrible show. But let me tell you this real quick. You once said that Andrew Watt was a young Mike McCready. Did you or did you not?
I did say it.
Okay, so in theory...
I said Mike McCready Jr., actually.
Okay, Mike McCready Jr.
It's different than a young Mike McCready, but you get my point.
Yes. Have you ever said that about Jeff Ament or Stone Gossard?
No, I have not.
And there's a reason.
Because nobody has tried to imitate them ever.
Correct. Mike McCready is one of the greatest guitarists I've ever seen live. I love Mike McCready. I think he's amazing. But a lot of people emulate what he does. They follow through what he does. That's why Andrew Watt did what he did on the Eddie Vedder solo tour. And he did it great. But nobody can copy what Jeff and Stone can do. Listen, there's a lot of lazy guitarists out there who stand on stage and don't do much, and you're bored with them, and you don't even know their name in the band. Stone is not a very active guitarist on stage. He's in his place. He does what he has to do. He's beautiful at what he does, right? You can't copy that because there's a way of his sound and his look that just can't be mirrored like Mike McCready can be. That's my 2 cents.
Well, nobody's wearing a traffic cone on stage. The look definitely can't be replicated. Or a chicken hat, whatever.
Well, I think yes, you are correct. Or, listen, realistically, I don't want to see anybody else on stage but the band. But I will say this, and we'll move on after this. and we're kind of doing tour overview with this as well. But Richard Stuverud, who's been a friend of mine for a couple of years, who's done a lot with Touring Fan Live, who's going to be on the next Let's Talk Vinyl and talk about the experiences because he'll be back from vacation. You know, he's such a great dude, and he's had a lot of ups and downs in his life. And recently, as recent as a couple of months ago, was questioning, was his music worth anything to anybody? Was anybody listening to his music? And if you listen to Richard's music, he's an amazing musician that gives it his all. He's a great teacher. He educates kids in the School of Rock out where he lives. There's a lot about Richard to love. And for him to be able to do that with Pearl Jam, and if you look at the video clips and the way he plays and his passion behind it, there's no one more deserving than him to be able to get those moments. And I was just so happy for him.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I saw the same thing where he was just kind of down on himself. And I think, reading through the lines there, it was kind of down on, I guess, like the music industry. I feel like he still had somewhat of a love for playing music, but he just came out with that album Hummingbirds, and I'm wondering if that had some attachment to that, where either he couldn't get the right promotion for it, or he just wasn't seeing the numbers in purchases or streams go up. And that's got to be really hard right now because there's so many musicians trying to get their name out there, and all the general population wants is just stuff from the past or just like one or two artists from now, especially where we are. Like, we're his main source of fandom right here. Like, that's where he's counting on us to pay attention and listen to his stuff and appreciate it. And I think it's tough for the younger generation. I know a lot of the younger generation will dabble with our kind of music, but it's mostly not. And that's the struggle with it nowadays. You can't go in CD stores. You can't go in, they don't have stores like this anymore. They have vinyls, vinyl record places, obviously, but it's really tough. And the production on vinyl the last couple of years has been really bad and held back a lot. So it'd be really tough for him to put a lot of that in production. I don't know the story. I don't know what he's got going on with that, but I assume it had some stuff to do with that. And Anthony, you know him way better than I do, so I'm just making assumptions, obviously.
No, yeah, we'll learn more next month when we talk about him. I haven't really had a full conversation with him in a little bit, just a few snippets, but he's ready to tell his story about how it happened and all that stuff. And look, I'm getting comments up here. This is great. So
comments.
Yeah. Well, this damn program I use has had more updates than CNN gives news articles out on a daily basis. And I'm actually getting comments now, so it's good. I can actually go like this, and post that up there like I used to. So
we haven't heard from Ryan in a long time. Hey Ryan. I feel like we used to hear from Ryan all the time.
He watches every show and comments. So I just never be able to pull him up because I've been able to do it.
Yeah, right. We haven't been able to do this.
So we're good. We could pull him up now. Just learn. But listen.
Wonderful.
I think that's it. So I think we knocked out COVID. Well, we didn't knock it out. It's still around, but we knocked out that topic.
Yeah.
And I think we really went into a tour overview per se. I think you guys really knocked it out pretty well on the aspect But go ahead.
I was going to say, unless you want to talk about some like moments, actual like performances in the show outside of where, COVID kind of hit them and they were forced to make these kind of moments. What do you think was really the standout from all of this?
I guess I'm the only one that went to one of the shows because yours got canceled out and
right.
you didn't make the trip. Canceled,
right. No, I wasn't. Yeah, I didn't go out there. Yeah.
I'm going to say this. I went in with low expectations to the shows, and I really went out to the West Coast to see friends. I got to see a lot of friends, and it was probably the greatest part of like a refresher for the soul that I've had in a long time. And I know, Randy, you can agree to that because you were able to see a lot of people.
Correct, yeah.
I understood ahead of time that they weren't going to be playing 3-hour marathons and they weren't playing these long set lists, so I was okay with that. I enjoyed what I saw. And I was cool with what we were getting because I feel like that's what we're getting going forward. Unless they play like stadium shows, like arenas again, like football stadiums or baseball stadiums. Maybe we'll get longer ones. But I think what we're seeing now is what we're getting in the future. And I was okay with it. But I will say this. I don't think I left the shows as overly energized as I was in previous ones. I felt there was, I don't know, I just felt something was missing. I don't know how to, it just was different. I love the shows. I don't regret it by any means, minus the posters, because I do feel like this is the worst leg of posters I've ever seen in my life.
Awful.
And
except for the Vegas one was great, and I have a copy of the Vegas one from the artist right here. I think he only printed 100.
Yeah, you know, and kudos to you for that. I mean, I have the LA one hung up, and I think that's the biggest pile of garbage I've ever owned. And I love Ames Brothers.
Dinosaur one? Which one?
No, that's the one with like the copy, cut, paste, all that shit, you know, with animal heads. I don't know. But realistically, I just feel as though I'm wondering, as we get closer to the fall and I see the European dates, and I have quite a few shows to do in the fall, am I going to really want to do that many shows and dedicate that much time to that many shows and maybe just do less shows? Just because as much money as it costs, inflation, right? Cost of going places, the cost of eating, cost of hotels. I mean, realistically, I did a number, and I wasn't going to mention this, but I'll mention it now, and I have it right here. When St. Louis first started, when it was supposed to go out in 2020, if you were to go to that show, the average cost of food, gas, hotels, if you went there just for the day, and I was flying from Virginia to there and back, I would have spent $411. For me to do that exact same trip in the fall of September of this year, that trip is $965. It is
more than
basically
doubled. Wow.
More than doubled. Yeah. So and that's just that. So realistically, if you're going to do 4 shows and you had dedicated $2,000 to do those 4 shows, you're probably looking at $4,000 plus now in hotels, cost of hotels, and that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And Brad brings up a great point. The lack of energy from the VIP did not help the LA shows, and that might have been a big reason why too. There was a lot of VIPs there, and I felt like, you know, there was, you know, he did point out a lot of people in the crowd like he did in Chicago, and I will say maybe that's another reason why I didn't love Chicago so much either. Just listen, I know you have friends in the audience, I get it, but I don't need you to tell me the story about a guy that you met at a bookstore you gave free tickets to that knew you through a face mask, and you dedicate a song to him. But then right after that, you dedicate the same song to 4 other people. I love Eddie. I love that he talks. But, man, it got to the point where I didn't need to know about all these people in the audience. Like, I felt like he introduced half the audience.
Eddie's speeches on this tour were either absolute home runs or just spinning in circles. You know, the Bill Murray one was awful. Like, what point was he trying to get out? And literally they could have played 2 songs during that whole entire thing. And I think that's what bothers me a little bit, because you see it's like, okay, 23, 24, which is fine. I don't mind that the shows have kind of been trimmed in length and in duration as well. Length, or in songs, in set list form. But, you just, you know, you're thinking to yourself while all this is happening, is there, especially when something like that happens, there's always been like this air of like, you're seeing something magical, you're seeing something almost like a religious experience, if you want to put it that way. And Eddie's kind of brought that out. And while I thought the crowds were good, I was listening to a bootleg today. I think it was the second Oakland show that I was listening to. And in the bootleg, like the bootleg recording doesn't have that like full crowd response of an entire arena. It's just like, okay, it's almost like they played in a club, like these group of fans, you can kind of hear them in front of the mics. And yeah, like it just, for me, I want to hear like the full scope of a big arena where they know like they're playing towards 20,000 or so, and they're like pumped to rock. Like, yeah, they were pumped for these shows, absolutely, but I think it's different. And you know, I don't want to say it's a little bit different on the West Coast, because I honestly didn't get my opportunity to see it firsthand, but like we have some shows in some major places coming in September: Toronto, MSG, Camden. I think those are the 3 massive ones. And if the crowd really doesn't bring it for those, I would be interesting to see what direction this is all going in, because I think it is like part crowd, like you mentioned with the VIPs, but it's also where they're taking the show and how they can conduct the crowd. That's one of the best things they do. Conduct the crowd and just bring them to that big magical moment. And maybe out of this, I wouldn't say that there were the set was unexpected or anything like that. That like it wasn't like a lot of holy shit moments. There weren't, but that still doesn't have to constitute for being a magical show, if you know what I mean.
Totally agree with you. Dave, have you listened to any of the bootlegs at all?
I've listened to pretty much all of them except for like one of the later ones. I got them all though. But okay. I really don't think that the bootlegs in the last few years were mixed right. I mean, I'm mixing, like, I know we were talking about even last year after Ohana and after New Jersey, that they didn't do it right. They don't have the crowd noise. They don't have, like, the new songs were so mixed wrong. You're like, what is going on here? I can't even hear, like, I can't hear Stone. All I hear is Eddie. Like,
yeah,
that's all you could hear. And this time they did a better job, but it's still not up to snuff compared to previous years. I mean, the glory days of the 2000s and stuff like that. That was 2003 and stuff like that was my favorite year of all bootlegs. So they have to get back to that.
And you would think with the technology that's available to them that you think that it would be an easier task to do. And listen, I know nothing about sound engineering, but it's just surprising that this is what it's like. So, you know.
I mean, from last year, the new songs from last year were awful. They got remixed for this year, for this tour, and the new songs sound much better. And they're figuring it out because, you know, the band's figuring it out, the techs are figuring it out, but they're still messing up with all the other songs too.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, unless it's from 10 and they've mixed it so many times and they have notes from like every person who mixed it, they just go press a button and go, okay, this is how you mix that song.
It is interesting for sure. But listen, we're gonna move on from that. So I think we did tour review COVID real well. The numbers game, Randy, why don't you break down what the numbers game is and what we're gonna be talking about?
Oh, you got the numbers man right over there. You have Dave. He's the one. I set this topic up for Dave to succeed here. This is all Dave's.
Oh, geez.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but come on, it is numbers.
All right, so I got some new stats about albums per year, per show, and historical over the years. Let me see if I can pull up some of that.
Are we able to share that in this?
I sent Anthony. I sent you the link to some of those.
Okay, I can pull them up. Hold on a second. Let's see. It's in the group chat.
Yeah.
Got it. 10-4. Hold on. All right, here it is. Clicking it.
Yeah, I got two links right there.
Historical percentages and show albums plays per year.
Yeah.
Which one?
Historical.
Got it. Hold on. Pulling it over in just a second. And here we go. And now you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to even do something even cooler. I'm going to do this. Hold on a second. We're going to do this view. We're going to do that view. I'm going to do this. And done. And I'm going to put that on the screen. And I'm going to add you. And that one. Oh, no, that way.
Getting fancy.
Boom. Ready? It's all you.
Oh, jeez.
Slick right there.
Look at that.
All right, so scroll down a little bit so we can see this thing here. So these are years and the breakdowns of the albums. So you got the first reddish maroon stuff is 10. So of course you start off, you know, early days. This is like what, like 80-90% of the shows are just playing 10 because that's all they had. And then you can see like the years where it jumps. You know, they're playing a lot of this album, that album. You know, 2000. You know, last year, 2021, jump over there. You get that like light blue. That's your Gigaton right there. They were playing more Gigaton there in those last those four shows over 10. But you can also see 10 has really stayed up, from the very beginning. Percentages of all the shows.
17.86.
Really, yeah. There's a dip kind of like late 90s, 2000s. Yeah.
2001. Here, you know what I do too?
Well, 2001 doesn't have much.
No, there's not much.
Just two British school shows.
Right. But you could see that, this is overall shows over album plays, and they're, new album, they're still up there with Gigaton, but 10 has always stayed up there throughout the years. And of course you got that one
oh my god. Comment of the night. 10 looks like Peloton stock chart. That is the funniest thing I have read all night. Good comment to you, Mark. Oh my god, love it.
It could be Dogecoin too.
Yeah, all right. Oh,
you want to go to the other one?
Yeah, so the other one's going to be just 2022.
Show album plays per year. Okay, here we go. Whoa, this is a fancy
So these are broken down by show. So you can definitely see like that last show, Dave was there. So they start playing 10 heavy. But again, 10 is right up there. And they started this year with, we're gonna kick out with Gigaton. And then it just kind of petered off.
Wow.
Like, I don't know why they.
Well, it's definitely due to the drummers, and
I
think like I was disappointed that Klinghoffer didn't play more Gigaton because he's familiar with that stuff, and understandably so that Stuverud is playing more 10 and more verses because that's kind of what he grew up, listening to and being friends with Jeff back in the early days, and I understand that, and of course, cruising right there too, but. Yeah, I think they just had to abandon it because it was situational, and even so, like in the first few shows before COVID got to Matt, it did feel like they were a little light on it. Some songs weren't even played; they didn't even get to some songs yet, and then like Rivercross and Retrograde and a couple of the others only got played once. And I think one of those shows had like 3 Gigaton songs, which is just for a new album. And I get that it came out 2 years ago, but they should be more excited to be playing it. They were excited to play them back in the festival year in 2021 last year, but it was disappointing. Like I wanted more than Super Blood Wolf Moon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Quick Escape is amazing as it is, but
Yeah. I have homework for you, Dave. Brad says, I wonder what it would look like if you layered the albums and started point A as album release date.
So if you go back to the other one, if you see where it just jumps out of nowhere, that's basically where album, like I was also going to put, so if you go down to the bottom, it just keeps on just flat, and then starts jumping up. But that's basically in that year is where the release date is, but I'm also trying to put in there like a hard line to say on this line is where this album starts, because you can have stuff like early on that like you got some Lost Dogs in there, which I think is the yellow in there. I mean, you Lost Dogs, there was a few Lost Dogs up there, and then it kind of
it jumps up heavily in 99
jumps up.
And then
because that's Last Kiss. Like, they play Last Kiss at Bridge School.
Yeah, and then you have I love this one right here because it's almost like the dark hole.
Yeah,
this is just
the hole,
the
Hall of Fame hole.
Oh, there you go.
That's what it is.
Hall of Fame hole. I like it.
Oh,
all right,
my God,
that's great.
Yep.
First of all, if you don't know Dave and livefootsteps.org, which let me see something real quick. Let me see if I have this. Nope, doesn't work. I have your commercial.
Commercial break?
Yeah, but it's not. I don't know if it's working. Hold on. No, it's not working.
No.
That's
That's
okay.
all right. That's all right. Well, listen, livefootsteps.org is where I, from the Touring Fan Live, I know Randy over at, God, Jesus Christ. Oh,
Live.
I
God.
forgot.
Oh, my God.
Live?
Live on Four Legs podcast. We get all of our statistics from. So
We
definitely check
shouldn't
out.
we shouldn't spend this long without talking to you.
Oh, my God. Yeah, well, listen,
It's been a
I,
while.
it's been a while and it's been a long journey to get here, and I'm still not even here. But yeah, check out livefootsteps.org. It really is the go-to place for all Pearl Jam facts and stats and everything in between that you can really learn a lot about the shows you went to. Because listen, we probably forget about the damn songs we heard at shows. It's hard. If you've been to a lot of shows, go back, check it out, and listen. Give Dave a like. Throw him some money. Throw him a bone. Hell, throw Randy a bone. Listen, we're broke. We got kids. We got to freaking help people out. Anyway, moving on to the next topic. Personal moments. Now, it's interesting because I think all of us have different takes on this. With Dave being really like from the outside looking in, Randy, the hype flying over there, getting excited and having it all canceled out, and then me going to a show. It's really three different takes on this entire tour. And I think what we'll do is we're going to start with Randy first because I feel like Randy's story is the biggest one here. Randy, why don't you tell us a little bit about the excitement build up beforehand and then your best moment from that experience?
Oh yeah, so I remember it all. I might be able to tell my grandkids without even breaking a sweat. So on the 17th, I flew in. I flew into San Francisco because it was a lot cheaper to fly from Syracuse to San Francisco than it was from Syracuse to Sacramento for some reason. It was very odd, but I flew into San Francisco. During the day, I just went over to Pier 39 and just walked around the wharf, and it's just really nice down there. I got to see the sea lions, which is obviously the big thing. And then a friend of mine, Brian Anderson, picked me up, and we were off to the show, and not even 10 minutes in that car ride. I'm getting texts from people that are in Sacramento that are on the merch line. Sean Raskus, if he's listening to this, and I get a text from him. It's like, oh, this is the merch line right now. I'm like, that's a pretty long line, and they haven't opened yet, and it's past 1:00. Like, okay, a little strange. About 2 minutes later, he texts me all caps, what the fuck, and it's canceled. And it just, my first reaction to it was kind of like, I wanted to laugh because of course it would go like this. Of course this would be the end of this, and I would feel like, oh, I got nothing out of my trip, which wasn't true. I did not get nothing out of my trip. I got a full experience. I made a lot of friends, met a lot of new people, and honestly, I don't think I would have been able to have that experience if we didn't have all this, which I'll get into a second. But yeah, time kind of went by. I talked to my wife, and I think it was kind of after that, I was just like sitting there like, shit, we're really going to be there in a couple of minutes, and we're going to walk in. This was going to be the weirdest thing. And I documented this all for the documentary that I'm doing on the tour, which is, you know how all documentaries go, that you have a plan for it until plans change. And that's exactly what this was. And that's exactly why I think it's going to be really interesting once it's all put together. So I go in, we walk up, and apparently the area that we're about to walk into was where the merch tent was, which is where everybody was waiting. Underneath like an awning was where everybody in the GA line was. And we walk up, and it's a fucking ghost town. Not barely a person wearing a Pearl Jam shirt. And luckily, after a minute or two, good friend Brandon Palomo from the Better Band podcast, which you should listen to his podcast as well as the other Pearl Jam ones. We stumbled into him because we were supposed to meet up with him anyway, but we didn't even tell him that we were here yet. But we stumbled into him. We were just like, what the hell's going on? And he's like, everybody just got out. So we did go back to where the GA line was. We talked to some people there, maybe no more than 10 people gathered together. And we were just like, fuck, what do we do? But if we do something, we all got to do something together to kind of like, just at least keep each other company and at least keep each other from going insane. And there was a barbecue restaurant called Sauced, which we were all supposed to be going to anyway, the people that were in my circle, which, it was kind of adding the people in my circle and adding the people who weren't in my circle to all of it, which was kind of cool, like old friends meeting new friends sort of deal. And we just kind of sat there. We had as much fun as we could. We got to know each other. We got to know our Pearl Jam stories. We got to sign the Pearl Jam Scotland flag and busted out Haggis McDowell, which, if you don't know Haggis, you got to follow Haggis on Facebook, the amazing sock monkey. He was a good friend during this whole time period. He's traveled to, lots of tours, traveled around the world. He's just he's a one of a kind sock monkey. So definitely go, and if you're interested in that, go find him. He's a hell of a follow. And yeah, we just, we celebrated the only way we know how. And we kind of, what ended up happening was Brian, who I mentioned before, who drove me there, and his brother came by a little bit later. We were just like, okay, let's eat, let's drink. We were kind of hopping around from place to place a little bit. We weren't sure if we were going to do bowling. There was a karaoke idea that was a little bit on the table, but we were just like, that we wanted other people to get in on it, because why are we going to do karaoke with 3 people? It seems stupid, but that all changed. And then we bumped into people. Good friend of mine now, Ned. He just kind of pointed at us. He was like, "Hey," and we were just like, "Hey, come over here. Come over and hang out." Like, this is. I don't do this. You don't usually do this. Like, Anthony, if you saw a person in a restaurant wearing a Celtics shirt, would you be like, "Hey, come over here and join our group"?
No.
Probably not, right?
No,
You're just kind of like, okay, cool, Celtics, great.
You do that.
Right. But because it's Pearl Jam, and because of the situation at hand, and because everybody was kind of in the same boat that day, I just felt like, the more the merrier. Like, come join, like come hang out and just forget about it for a second, tell stories. And that was the best that we can do. And there were other things that happened that night, like, just things that did. Anthony, you probably know some of the things that happened that night, but I won't repeat them because it's not worth repeating. But, and you're kind of the next, as the night comes, you're like, okay, tomorrow I fly out to Vegas. What the hell is going to happen? And I ended up, my situation was that I was supposed to stay at the Tropicana with a friend, Patrick, and Patrick, who was up in New York, he canceled his flight. He canceled everything. So I didn't technically have a hotel. I went and booked something at MGM Grand for a pretty decent price. And that's where I ended up being. And just throughout the whole kind of weekend, we met up with so many people, like, again, new people, old people. Dale dropped by when we were playing Top Golf, and just kind of make it like a family arrangement sort of thing. And then on Friday, so I've always had this idea, Anthony. I told you about this idea, months ago, that I really wanted to do Pearl Jam karaoke at one point. I didn't know if it was going to be before a show, after a show, a day before the show started. I didn't know how to execute it. I didn't know what to do, but this was a good learning experience in what to do, because I had this idea. I wanted to do it in Sacramento somehow, but couldn't work. And then Andrew Taylor, who we had on the last version of Destined to Remember, who came on, he had the same idea. He's like, guys, if you're going to Vegas, you need to fucking do something. You need to do karaoke. And then Gina Rivera, also at the same time, it was kind of like the collaboration of 3 people that had the same idea. And we're like, okay, what are we going to do to execute it? Because this is, short notice. There's a lot of people still going that are probably looking for things to do. And we're just like, all right, well, we found a place that does karaoke. Everybody just show up there at 7:00 and we'll see where it goes. So the place was called Rock House, and it was in the Venetian. It was in the Venetian, and which is just like, that's the nicest hotel in Vegas. I'm convinced that that's the nicest hotel in Vegas. I know there's a lot of stuff I didn't get to see everything, but just by looking inside, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a big deal right here. And So people, what happened was we didn't actually make a reservation, and they knew we were coming, but they were just kind of like, oh, it wasn't on the book. So where are we going to seat you guys and stuff like that? How many are you expecting? I'm like, like 30, no more than 30, max 30. So they put us in the back, and like, okay, so we got the back. But the problem was I told the hostess, anybody that's with us, just send them back there. And if they weren't wearing a Pearl Jam, I don't think, even if they were wearing a Pearl Jam shirt, I don't think they understood to send them back there. So there's so many people that are walking in, and they're going to tables like in front and stuff like that. I'm like, no, we're in the back. And then like 5-10 minutes rolls by, and I'm like, fuck, this whole entire place is filled, packed to the house with Pearl Jam fans, over 100 people easily, over 100 people. And it was just like, and when we started kind of doing the songs, the first guy goes up, and who was the first guy that did it, his name is Matt Cooper, and he did a phenomenal job. The first song out of the gate was Given to Fly. And I went, started doing a live stream, started recording for the documentary and stuff like that. And then at the point where like the wave came crashing like a fish to the jaw, I turned back, and everybody is screaming as if we were at the MGM Grand at the actual Pearl Jam show that was supposed to happen. Like, everybody took this super seriously, had so much fun. Just like, people, if one person went up and sang, like the next person after a drink or two was like, yeah, it's my turn now. I'm gonna go sing this. I'm gonna go sing that. And the guy that was the DJ, he was a really nice guy. He was not prepared for this at all. He was not prepared. And, we had the place 90% packed to our guys. So the whole entire time he's like, guys, I'm going to run out of Pearl Jam stuff. So you need to start singing some other songs. And he just got, every time he mentioned it, he was boo, boo. But I mean, he was really fair about it. He was really nice about it. And, they had, the selection was really random. They didn't do the Evolution or Corduroy or Elderly Woman, but they had Tremor Christ and Who You Are and The Fixer. Like, that to me was just very, very odd.
That is really.
But I took advantage of some of the random stuff. Like, you wouldn't think that. Maybe they wouldn't have a Spin the Black Circle. Maybe they wouldn't have, Go. And those were the two songs that I weirdly decided to do to fucking tire myself. I did Spin the Black Circle early, and afterwards I'm like, okay, I got a good reaction. I feel pretty good after this. All right, solid, nice. And when the DJ, whose name is Felix, when he was asking for people to do more non-Pearl Jam songs, I'm like, okay, I'll get this kick-started. Let's see where this goes. And I did what was my old karaoke staple in Whitesnake, Here I Go Again on My Own. A song that I haven't listened to in maybe a decade. So I was going into it cold. I still kind of, once I got into it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember what I was doing here. I remember what I was doing here. And yeah, I felt a groove out of it. But afterwards, I'm like, okay, this didn't really fulfill me. Like, I need this crowd needs more Pearl Jam, and we had so many great people perform. There was a guy in a band called Alive. His name is Eric Tovar, and he played in a cover band called Alive that was playing the next day. They would have played on that Friday if their drummer didn't have another gig. So they were playing the extra day on Saturday. But he came and he did karaoke, and he did Alive. And I believe he did I've Got a Feeling as well. And he walks up, he's got the plaid on, he's got a Rock for Choice shirt on, and he's got like he's very, very like 1991 looking Eddie, just fresh baby face with his hair kind of over his face. He's kind of doing like the shyness that Eddie had in the early days. And he was incredible. He was incredible. He did Alive, and he just had the place rolling, and he hit every note, and it was just great. It was great to witness. Like, so many great songs and people perform it. Like, it's just fun, whether or not they were good or bad or what have you. It was just fun. And then what I call to be the shining moment of my music career, I suppose, was after a while when people were just like, okay, like, we won't do Pearl Jam songs. Well, and it was really there were a couple songs that went by. I was supposed to do a Ramones song, and I went up there. I'm like, we need another Pearl Jam song. And the first one that it came to my mind that I remember seeing that nobody else picked at that point was Go. And I felt like we needed that to reignite the crowd. And I went up and I started hollering. Going up there and screaming, "Don't go on!" And the whole entire crowd. I didn't have to do it. The crowd fucking had it. They just had it, and it just felt like I understand why musicians do what they do. This is a crowd of 100 people. Now, I used to be in a band, but we never had people ever singing our lyrics back to us like that. Being in front of that, and they're not my lyrics, but they're obviously ones that everybody in that building know. And hearing everybody just like repeating and singing along and doing all that. And then at the end, I see on the prompter, I see like one of the lines was "Why Go On Me," which I don't think I had remembered at the time that was like a little kind of like a little Easter egg there, that one of the lyrics was "Why Go On Me." And then that kind of got stuck in my head. I'm like, all right, let's do a little "Why Go" tag here. And when I started that "She Scratches" letter, everybody started coming in on it, saw what I was doing, and they followed up. And it was just, obviously Go being like one of their most like just fast and just winded songs. I was just like, yeah, I need to sit down after this one. It was hell, but Rockin' in the Free World, I made sure, the night was supposed to end, and Felix was like, oh, well, I need the non-Pearl Jam people. I'm like, screw the non-Pearl Jam people. This, I went around and I collected tips for him from everybody, and this is, we're not 18 anymore. Absolutely right. Which was the time where I was performing in a band. And we had to close the night with all the people on stage doing "Rockin' in the Free World," and that, just like Pearl Jam, it just felt like a big party and just a warm way to end the thing. So I couldn't be more fortunate to have been a part of that and have so many people during that say thank you for this. And it's less of like, putting it together and more of the people getting together and seeing this as the thing that was going to be what replaces Pearl Jam for their weekend. And again, a lot of people spent a lot of money on this. The funds were through the roof, me included. And at that point, like if you see that, you got a plane ticket to Vegas, you have a hotel, who's going to turn down a trip to Vegas, especially if you have a couple friends or your wife is going with you. And yeah, like it sort of turned into like everybody kind of, figuring this out all together. And I said that the quote of the weekend was, Pearl Jam unfortunately had to give us lemons, but they gave us lemons so we can make lemonade and we can turn this into something real good, a good memory. And I will always, at the end of the day, this might be my favorite memory from any kind of Pearl Jam gathering that I can remember, outside of like actual songs, performances, and moments from the shows themselves. It was just amazing to be part of. That's a long story, but I think it from my perspective, all needed to be told.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad that you were able to turn lemonade or lemons into lemonade for your
That would be
sour.
it.
So no, it's great. Dave, you were, out of all three of us, the one that was kind of furthest out. What were you getting from this tour? Like, what was going on in your life? Were you just kind of paying attention, or were you just like, it is what it is?
I was, every night we had people come and relay to us and tell us what was going on. And Randy was like, "Oh yeah, you're going to be going out there. You're going to be doing, Live Footsteps live, like I've done, at the show." And I was like, "You're like, oh, you're great. You're going to take care of it. I can go sleep." Like, you're going to be on the West Coast.
Those were long nights on those Zoom calls, man.
It's like, man, gosh, it was so long. I was like, and I was like, great, I can take a break. But then also, like, I'm taking a break, and I'm like, but there's no shows. I'm like, oh, I felt so bad for you. I was like, oh, that. and I was really I'm still really looking forward to, September, Madison Square Garden. I've been held on to those tickets. I'm gonna go do that, and then ended up getting Camden because like I have to go to two. I have to go to two this year. So I was like, all right. So I put in to get those, but that's such a turnaround. Like to go to Madison Square Garden, and then to go to Camden several days later. I'm like, do I go back home and then back down to Jersey, or do I stay down there?
Well,
And
I'll formally invite you to crash at my house for a couple days since my family won't be there, because they want me to quarantine and be away because for obvious reasons they don't want to get Ben sick again. I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
This is very a selfish thing that we all do sometimes, that we realize that we kind of leave our families behind to take care of all that's left there. And some, thankfully my wife is just, she understands, she's very understanding of it, and she gets why, with what I've been doing, why it's important to me. If I was just a fan and said, yeah, I want to go to 6 shows in September, she would have said, no, you're not, go fuck yourself. But she understands, like, going out and not just going to the shows, but networking and live streaming and stuff like that was really important. But like, hats off to all of the spouses out there, all of anybody that has that I wouldn't say puts up, but that allows all of us to do what we do, because this is hard. It's hard financially, as everybody mentioned before. It's hard, when you go out and you're doing the trip, like just planning everything and preparing everything. And then, it's hard being away from the family for a couple of days. Like I said, my baby was turning 11 months old during the whole time. And I wasn't able to be there when he had his month anniversary. And, that sucked. And all of it, from him getting sick to everybody getting sick. And it just, like, I basically felt like I was sitting in my house by myself, like having to like live with all the regrets from going to the show. And I don't regret going out there, but I regret putting my family in the situation. And, it's hard, and it feels selfish that you do it again, of course, but you try so hard. It's just, COVID is going to be out there, and you're going to try so hard to be as safe as you can. And you take precautions. Nobody wants their family to feel the effect of this, but yeah.
And after seeing all the stuff you guys did out in Vegas, like, man, you got to start making that a thing. You like, just,
I would love to. I would just love to, even if it would be cool if in 2023 it would suck, but it would be cool in 2023 if they didn't really have a tour year, but we all figured out a place to go and congregate and kind of do stuff like that. Just like have almost like a Pearl Jam con. Anthony, did I just come up with something cool? Pearl Jam con?
Don't even say that, because there is someone from another organization that is already doing something with that, and then you'll get some sort of legal letter in the mail saying that you stole. Yeah, stay away from it. Just stay.
All right, well, maybe we can call it like Live Footsteps Live on Four Legs Touring Fan Live Con.
Yeah,
that rolls off the tongue, you guys.
The Touring 4-Foot Con.
What?
There it is. Next year, stay tuned.
Sure.
Touring 4-Foot Con. Next thing you know, just get people coming there. People are going to come in and be like, with foot fetishes and know nothing about Pearl Jam, but it's all good.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, it's great. It's awesome. No, I think it was a really cool tour. I was, I don't even know did I tell my story? I'll make it quick, because we've been yammering. Yeah. LA. First time I ever put my feet in the ocean on the West Coast. Pretty magical moment. I got to see friends that I love dearly. I hadn't seen in a very long time. That get to hug. I ended up staying in the same hotel with Dale. Didn't even know that. We didn't book it ahead of time, and ended up having a pre-party that was canceled. We ended up having a bunch of people come back to the hotel, and made it where I ended up booking a big ass bus that took us back and forth from the hotel to the concert without having to worry about booking. So we got this great thing. Great experience. I had the purple hat. I got to watch. I was 12th in line for merch, and watched someone buy 120 extra large T-shirts and was allowed to, so I wasn't even able to get one. But then found out that I had lost enough weight to buy large Pearl Jam shirts, so that was exciting.
Hey.
The show was great. I enjoyed it, but I really think the highlight for me was being able to see people I hadn't seen in a very long time and realize how important the community was to me. And I had my first, me and Dale were at a bar, and some woman taps us on the shoulder and says, I follow you guys on Instagram, and and it's great that you've lost weight, Anthony, and Dale, you do so much for the community. And I had no idea who the fuck she was, so that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
Otherwise, it was a great tour. I didn't really hear anything I hadn't heard before, minus a couple songs with Gigaton, but it really wasn't important. I did have this one guy that stood in front of me that had just gone through brain surgery, and it was directly in front of me. That Ed stood alive for, and him and his brother shared a moment of them just breaking down crying that made me cry, that made the woman next to me cry, that made like everyone in the area cry, and it was just this crying moment. And I feel like all these maybe it's even older, I'm emotional, but every Pearl Jam show I've been to in the last couple of years, I fucking cry at. And maybe I need to adjust my medicine a little bit, but great moment, great tour.
You need to man up, Anthony.
I need to put some more hair on my chest. Or on my head for that reason. But yeah, no, it was a cool time. Really, really fucking enjoyed it. I look forward to the fall. But as Mark Kirby had said a little while ago, I am very much more cautiously optimistic on how the tour is going to look. And this leads us into the next segment with Europe, because they're not home. They're playing overseas. With everything that's happened already, they're probably going over there. I don't think the band even flies in the same plane anymore. I don't even think the band is in the same wing of a hotel anymore. I don't think they transport together anymore. I do think that it is going to be different. And also with all these shows they're playing, having multiple bands at and stuff, it's going to be unique. I am not getting excited for any shows anymore until I'm in my seat. And that's the truth, because I don't know if I could have handled the situation like Randy did, having those shows canceled, because like we talked about money and finances, my vacationing or my getaway from everything is going to see Pearl Jam and seeing friends. My best friends in the world don't live anywhere near me. My best friend Brad, who maybe he's my best friend. I don't know if I'm his best friend, which would be kind of depressing. But anyway,
looks like you need a new best friend.
Well, I talk to him every day. I mean, except today, which he'll probably comment because I didn't answer his call when he called, but I was busy. We haven't seen each other in 3 years. We talk all the time, and then we got to see each other in LA, and that was amazing to me. And that was what's important to me. And that was, catching up and eating lunch with him and his lovely wife, Sam, and getting to meet other friends and eating lunch and on the beach and stuff. And that was a really cool moment. And, the older I get, the more I love Pearl Jam, but the more I love the experiences around it that make it why I spend the money to go out and do these things. So, well, I'm very excited for the fall tour, and I hope it works out, and I hope everything happens. I don't want to get too excited, because if I do spend all this money to have everything and then everything falls through, it sucks. But I will tell you, though, it is interesting to me, and I don't know if you guys have recognized this, everything you buy nowadays, there is this new waiver at the end of it, whether it's tickets, hotels, flights, or anything, that if this gets canceled, you're screwed. Like, we're not paying for anything. Unless you buy insurance for this. For a flight right now, you got to pay an extra $40 to cancel that flight and get refunded. For tickets, it's $25 for this. So now the cost of you going on vacation goes up. And if something happens, you're screwed unless you pay more for it. So it is scary to see what happens.
Well, I will say that I did get a refund on the tickets.
Yes. I guess I didn't tell this part of the story. I literally went to LA with a backpack, and I came home with a suitcase full of merchandise. Some was given to me, a lot was purchased, and it was worth it. I do have a lot of these purple Pearl Jam hats, that is for sure. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with them, but I do have quite a few purple Pearl Jam hats. So
Barney might be interested.
Maybe. I'll tell you something. They are much nicer than the See Here Now Festival hats. Those hats are the
Really?
worst hats. Oh god, the See Here Now Festival hats are garbage. They don't
one,
hold
so.
shape. Oh, they are. But yeah, or like Ryan says, Ryan has actually been to my house. Ryan's seen some of my Pearl Jam collection. I do have a U-Haul worth of Pearl Jam shit, and I'm very excited for when the studio gets built to actually display it again.
You need to do a live stream with that. Yeah, you just like go in the U-Haul and just show all your
just film you putting up everything.
Yeah.
Here's this.
I'm telling you, everybody that's a Pearl Jam fan or anybody that's interested in just music memorabilia would just fawn over and salivate over that, you know?
I mean, I don't know if I've ever told you this. I literally I'm looking at it now. You ever see those like plastic cases that have like drawers in them that are clear and they have drawers?
Yeah.
I literally have merchandise from tour years in each drawer. So my 2005 like little merchandise is in one, my 2006, my 2008, all going through.
Damn.
And so they're like stickers, pins, all that stuff are in one drawer, and they just go through by year. Like I've started to realize that I have something wrong with me, that I have to like separate things in like color coordination, and I don't know. I'll let my wife figure that out. Now Europe, you know, I wonder. I want to do an over-under. How many shows are getting canceled in Europe? I already know at least one is getting canceled in Europe. I can say that very confidently. One would be canceled.
Why is that?
Well, with the war going on in Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, Jesus. So Poland.
I wouldn't even think Poland. I was thinking, what's the one that Krakow?
Krakow's Poland.
I knew that. I was testing. Yeah. You passed. So Poland. That's the one I'm thinking is going to get canceled.
Well, I mean, Budapest is Hungary is right, kind of on the edge there too.
Yes, correct, 100%. Yeah, I could see that, man. It's tough with the way that the world is going on over there. I didn't think it was going to happen. I really didn't think Europe was going to happen. But after getting these emails and seeing that they're going, and now they're loading planes full of stuff, Sweden has already canceled. Did I not know that?
What? Really? I didn't hear that.
Is this breaking news?
No, I definitely did not hear that. I talked to somebody yesterday that was going to Sweden, and he seemed fairly certain that he was still going.
I'm checking right now. Switzerland, Italy, Germany, Belgium, Sweden. Lollapalooza, Stockholm. Let me check. I'm checking more information now.
Website doesn't say anything.
Website doesn't say anything. Now I'm going to do the good old goggle. I'm going to go to goggle.com and I'm going to do Lollapalooza.
The band would say something. The band would absolutely say something on Twitter.
Brad said, sorry, listed on Ticketmaster as TBA. Well, Brad, you just failed at life. So take that.
Womp.
Yeah, wow. All right. Randy? Or let's go to Randy. Opinions on Europe.
Oh, I don't want to do an over-under because that's just too depressing. I don't. I think that there's like cautiously optimistic about this. That like, okay, yeah, this is kind of a do-over from what happened, and you can kind of get mad in. I think that at Pink Pop, you're gonna get some big Matt moments, absolutely. And it's weird that the festival is going to be the one for that, even though it's Pink Pop and even though Pearl Jam's the headliner, it's going to be a lot of Pearl Jam fans, but there's a lot of people there that I'm sure that aren't paying attention, don't know that Matt didn't make the show or maybe don't even care. So it's weird for a festival being the one that you want to have like the tribute stuff and dedication stuff too. I'm really thinking that Berlin is going to be the one where we're going to see some special things and like Jeff will get, his moment in the set and Matt will get his moment in the set. And, this is pretty, comparatively, this is the longest stretch of tour dates that they've done since the last European tour in 2018.
Yeah.
And even before that, I think you have to go back to obviously 2016 and the East Coast run on that. But like, it feels like they're diminishing more and more as time goes on. Like, 2015, they did a little bit of South America. 2014, they did kind of a little of the heartland. And then before that, they did Europe. And before that, they were a big day out in Australia. But Like, it feels like this over time is diminishing a little bit. And I'm just like, I'm just excited that there's an opportunity to get the full run here. And I think it's 14 shows. Obviously, you're going to have the ones that most eyes are going to be on is going to be the Hyde Park ones in London. I think those are going to be the cream of the crop of these, especially that they're playing one night with the Pixies, and who knows what they're going to have in store with Frank Black. You never know. And I think the Amsterdam ones too, to finish off the tour. Look, I had tickets to both of those Amsterdam shows, and it was hard to let go of those, obviously, because anytime that you let go of a Pearl Jam show, it's just like, what the fuck am I doing? Jesus. And, when the show happens, will there be regrets? And I think this time around, like, obviously with my shows getting canceled, but having 6 that I'll be going to in September, I don't think that I'll be too disappointed by missing stuff in Amsterdam. It just feels like 2020 was just decades ago at this point, and they're not the same shows that it was going to be. So, look, I can't give any. I would like to hear more Gigaton. I would like to hear more of sort of the middle kind of songs filled in a little bit, like In Hiding. I don't understand why In Hiding hasn't been played yet. A little bit more of Riot Act. No Riot Act song had been played. No Avocado song had been played. So I want to see that stuff kind of get mixed in a little bit more. And I think there will be. I think there will be moments for that. But, it's right now, I think the anticipation is going to build, and then you can really start to make predictions once a couple shows get in as to what's going to happen. But a lot of legendary Pearl Jam cities that they're hitting up here too.
I agree with you. We'll see what happens. We're only hours away, days away.
If you want it, like we're because we're more than 24 hours. So let's say we're like close to 36 hours away, because our time on the East Coast, which you're not anymore. I think the show is going to start at either 2 or 3. I'm pretty sure it's probably going to start at 2, because Amsterdam is Greenwich Mean Time plus. So that's 7 hours ahead of us, which would give them a 9 o'clock start. So
I will tell you this: the West Coast posters, European posters, I think you're going to be excited about. East Coast posters, I think you're going to be excited about. So I think we have a lot for the merch people. But if you bought your T-shirts already, all you got to worry about is damn posters in the upcoming shows. I think you're going to be much more excited about what's coming up. But listen, guys, it's 9:17. My Celtics are down right now. It's a halftime. I'm pissed.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Aggravated. Check engine lights on my car. I spent $23,000 over the last 2 weeks trying to get my house and cars in order. Don't only have another car fail on me. And I got 6 jobs at work tomorrow. I love talking to you guys. But you know the old saying, sometimes you just got to hit the music. See what I did there?
You hit the music.
Nice segue.
You did it perfectly. Like I couldn't have done it better myself.
Well, listen.
Because I don't have the technology to.
You have technology. You have technology. But listen, realistically, it's always great talking to you guys. I'm sorry I've had to reschedule this so many times, but realistically, a lot of this is out of my hands. Well, I don't know. When's the Europe tour over? What's the last date on the Europe tour?
I got my calendar right here. Let's pull it open.
July 25th.
Yeah, you beat me to it. Literally, the words were coming out of my mouth. July 25th is the last night in Amsterdam. We can do like a mid-tour review if we want to, like at the end of June, because there'll be, I think, 6 shows in June. 7, 6, something like that.
Yeah. So we'll talk about those dates coming up.
Yeah.
And figure it out. But we'll have another Destined to Remember coming up. Maybe my studio will be built by then. Who knows? Unless another car breaks down or I lose a leg. Possible. But until next time, Dave. Wait, am I pointing at the right thing? No, I'm pointing the wrong way. Dave, over there, all the way to the side.
We're all on the left.
Livefootsteps.org. Check him out. Live and For Like podcast. God damn it, you're pointing the wrong side.
I'm the same way.
Randy, you're the same fucking way. Randy over there. Andy Torkman Live. More shows coming from all of us. But until next time, thanks for tuning in. And keep tuning. I don't fucking know. I can't come up. I don't know how to end these shows. let's do this. I like this. I worked really hard on this video. We're going to do this real quick. Hold on. I like
Show Anthony's hard worker.